Good morning, Scott Stearns, incident meteorologist here on the Calf Canyon Hermits Peak fires. So today we're going to be looking at continued moisture, and we can see that here in the cloud cover. That this image generally looks at visible satellite, but there's a little bit of enhancement, a little bit of color that you may or may not be able to see, and that just shows us as meteorologists what kind of clouds, what level of clouds are in different portions of the atmosphere across the map. So here we have the state of New Mexico, and we're somewhere right up in here, this area. We can see that there is a pretty expansive area, widespread area of cloud cover, and that's not only in the low levels, but also in the mid to upper levels as well, and that just shows how deep that moisture content is across the area. So move to the next slide, we'll see this is the water vapor imagery. So again, just kind of a different look at the same kind of thing, really. Couple of things I wanted to point it out here again is so that we have that pretty deep moisture kind of oriented southwest to northeast across much of the state of New Mexico and beyond. That's a signal of that kind of good monsoonal moisture from the southwest U.S. with maybe a little bit of influence from the Gulf of Mexico as well. One thing I did want to point out over here to the west, we see kind of this brownish yellow axis of lack of moisture, really. And so that's essentially showing the drying conditions that are coming in behind this surge of monsoonal moisture. And so that's really caused by kind of development of high pressure ridge across the Intermountain western U.S., and that's going to slowly slide to the east over the next day or so, and we'll talk about that in just a second here, but we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is precipitation over the last 24 hours on the left, over the last 3 days on the right. So if we take a little bit closer view into this, we can see western portions, kind of southwestern portions of the fire incident, just east of that Pecos Creek drainage area. We're looking at approaching approximately 2 inches. They probably did see some 2-inch precipitation totals again over the last 24 hours or so here on the left. In the southeastern portion of the fire, not quite as much, but still significant rainfall, over an inch of accumulation in the last day or so. As we look a little bit further north, I won't get too much into it, but we did see on the north zone a little bit lesser amounts, and that's because, again, the moisture is coming from the southwest, so we kind of see that upslope enhancement here on the southwestern edge of the fire, and then as we go downslope, so moisture continuing downhill on the leeward side of the mountains, not quite as much moisture content to be seen in that area. So again, a pretty similar kind of picture the last 3 days, so roughly over the weekend. The totals just happen to be a little bit higher across really kind of the central portions of the fire scar. So we have over 3 inches noted here, again, just on the kind of the southwestern portion of the burn scar to the east of that Pecos Creek drainage. So on the south side of the fire, we're looking at close to 1 inch to 2 inches pretty easily, 3-day totals. And I just wanted to note here that if you happen to look at just to the northeast of Las Vegas at the Las Vegas airport, it's only showing a little over 1/2 inch, but that's obviously pretty erroneous. We had that sensor go down, and so it wasn't totally accumulating all of the rainfall, and so this is just a portion of the rainfall here. It's actually probably closer to maybe 1 inch and a half or so in the Las Vegas area, maybe even approaching 2 inches in the last 3 days or so. So moving on, as we look out through the rest of today, we are still going to see chances for precipitation continue. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I think most of the rain has already fallen. The good news, the reason that I say fortunately we're not looking at a whole lot more is because we're at the point now in this incident and really across the landscape to where we've saturated the soils. The vegetation is certainly seeing an increase in that soil moisture, or excuse me, the fuel moisture and such. And so now that things are saturated, we're at the point where we have a really efficient runoff potential. And so looking forward, any additional rainfall, especially during the day today, really in the next 12 hours or so, again, it's mainly going to contribute to additional runoff because everything out there is fairly saturated in terms of, like I said, not only the soils but the fuels as well. So there's really not a whole lot more good we can do with more moisture at the moment. The nice thing is, so far on the incident, we've had fairly consistent long duration moisture, and that's always good, keeping the RHs higher, which really helps us out in terms of the fuels situation. So that being said, we are still looking at potential for light to moderate showers through the rest of today, and not only will that allow to keep the RHs fairly high, which is good news, but we are looking at light to moderate precipitation, which could, which will likely end around 1300 or so. So 1 p.m. That's really going to start decreasing. After we get into the afternoon hours, there is some slight potential for a thunderstorm, and that's really why the flash flood watch that's currently in effect goes through 9 p.m. tonight. So that's been extended if you haven't seen that already. So through 9 p.m. is when that flash flood watch will end. And we are looking at potential for a storm, potentially, around that 5-6 o'clock time frame. It looks like is probably the best potential this afternoon, if that does happen. So not a guaranteed thing, but of course, anytime we have thunderstorm activity, we are concerned about potentially strong, intense rainfall. So we'll be watching that pretty closely, especially on the southeastern and southwestern sides of the fire, where we've already had quite a bit of moisture in the area. As we move into Tuesday, Wednesday, I kind of alluded to, we have moisture off to the west, dry air off to the west that's going to kind of slowly slide east, and that's going to allow us to dry out a little bit. We're still not looking by any means at totally blue, sunny skies with no precipitation potential. We are still carrying around anywhere from around a 30 to 60% chance of a wetting rain, which that just means 1/10 of an inch or more across the fire area. And so those chances are not totally gone. In addition to that, we're going to keep some clouds across the area. And so not looking at a whole lot of moisture the next few days beyond today, but we are still, like I say, keeping moisture in the atmosphere, just not nearly as much as we have had so far. That's it. Thanks.